My name's Simon, Deputy CEO of Disability Employment Australia. Before we get started with the formalities of the session, I'd like to take this opportunity to do an acknowledgement of country. So I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land from which I'm calling in from today, which is the land of the Kaurna people from the Adelaide Plains. And I pay my respects to elders past and present. So these lunch and learn sessions are brought to you by the Centre of Inclusive Employment in partnership with Disability Employment Australia. The centre exists to support providers by providing practical resources, tools, and training, and help deliver high quality employment services for people with disability and employers alike. Disability Employment Australia is a peak body that represents disability employment providers that provide supports across the disability employment ecosystem in Australia. And the centre is delivered by a national consortium led by the Centre for Social Impact by Swinburne University of Technology, working alongside Inclusion Australia, Disability Employment Australia, National Disability Services, Family Advocacy, and the University of Melbourne. Together, the consortium brings a strong mix of research, lived experience, and sector expertise to the work. So, a bit of housekeeping before I introduce you to Bob. Um, there will be live captions provided by Expressions Australia, and Liv will pop some details in the chat around how you can access them. The session itself will be recorded and available through the online hub, along with slides and a transcript. Now I'm going to introduce you to Bob, who's coming in live from the US for us today. So in this session, Bob Bowen from the National Psychosocial Safety Network will explore why it's important to create safe and inclusive workplaces for people with disability, along with providing practical tips and resources you can implement in your work. So Bob is an internationally recognized consultant, author, and speaker with over 40 years experience in administration of human services programs, and is currently a behavior support practitioner with Prag Consulting in Melbourne. He's also a member of the Expert Advisory Group for National Psychosocial Safety Network in Australia, and has published over 25 peer and scientifically reviewed articles on topics of workplace safety and minimising behaviours of concern in NDIS funded programs. Bob has provided keynote and conference presentations at conferences throughout the world on topics of workplace violence and psychosocial safety. Now, before Bob gets going, if you've got any questions, please pop them into the Q&A function, and I'll stay on top of those throughout the session. Now, without any further ado, Bob, it's over to you, and welcome.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Simon. Let me share my PowerPoint presentation with everyone here. And we can go ahead and get started on this. It's all right. So, creating a psychosocially safe workplace, a support structure. What we're doing here is creating an environment where people can say that their minds, their heads, feel safe. You have a sense of psychological health. You've also got a sense of emotional health, that your heart is safe, that the feelings you have about yourself are honored and respected, and you experience positive social interactions. The research tells us that on average, in traditional workplaces, um, social interactions tend to be more negative than positive. The ratio varies between 3 to 1 and 5 to 1, depending on the study. So you probably have seen situations or experienced them where you go to work and it's not been a good day. Uh, those negative social interactions usually aren't big negatives. It's not a slap in the face. It's not bullying. It's little microaggressions. It's little things that put you down, that disappoint you, that make you feel just a little uneasy. And what we want to do is to recognize that psychosocially safe places have much different ratios of positive to negative interactions. The goal is 5 to 1. So every time I interact with people, I want to say to myself, I want to be positive in this interaction. Uh, I'm not able to do that 100% of the time. I've been teaching about this topic for probably 35 years. And I'm better now than I was 35 years ago, but I'm not perfect, and I don't think anybody is. Well-being is a word that means that at a holistic level, we feel pretty good about ourselves. And it's created by the interactions between a person, you or me, the social dynamics in the organization, relationships, and support systems in their environment. All of those things work together to create that sense of well-being and psychosocial safety. It doesn't just happen. There's a tendency to believe that because I'm a supervisor or because I was recently promoted to an administrator, that I must be pretty good at what I do. And the research tells us that most people are not trained for their new job because people think that, oh, you did really good at your old job. You must be good, so we'll promote you and make you a supervisor. God bless you, and then you, you start your job. And for me, it was terrible. I was a horrible administrator the first couple of months that I was in that position because I was using my old skills in a new job, and it just didn't work. So you've got to build this thing that's called psychosocial safety. Part of that building includes the physical layout. That physical layout is going to welcome or exclude people. And I've been in enough places, enough buildings around the world to know that a building can be wheelchair accessible without being wheelchair accessible. That there are little things that get in the way of making that building truly accessible for people. And um, it's the same thing would go for other disabilities as well. It takes a lot of work to make a physical layout welcoming, not just not just saying we've met the minimum standards, but you want that physical layout to be one that welcomes people. Policies and procedures provide the blueprints for relationships, and it's a different way of thinking about this. But when I write policies and procedures, I think to myself, I'm going to be structuring here the relationships that are ongoing within this organization. And I want to make sure that these are relationships that build and don't take away from well being. If I do a good job, then I've created an organizational structure where the relationships are safe, or as safe as we can make them. Nothing is 100% safe. We all make mistakes. There are days when something will pop out of my mouth, and oh, I didn't mean for that to happen. And if I've got a good track record, if people know that I'm doing my best all the time, and sometimes I mess up, they're much more likely to forgive me. And that forgiveness is part of this fabric that we're building here in psychosocial safety. So, as we look at putting this together, there's a pedagogy, a way of doing education called invitational education. It is, for my money, the best pedagogy in the world. And what I've done is to adapt invitational education to invitational safety, and asking myself, how can we create environments that invite people to build relationships where safety is at the forefront? So you have these characteristics, personal characteristics, that you first have to commit yourself to not just doing, but incorporating it into who you are. And you have to come to work and say, today I will be honest. Today I'll be optimistic. Today I'll be respectful. Today I'll be authentic. And if I do those four things, then I will build an environment in which I am trustworthy. People can trust me because of my honesty, my optimism, my respect for other people, and my authenticity. Um, what you see is what you get. I'm just Bob. That's all there is to it. So that's the first step. Is I have to be intentional about doing my work in this way. To make that happen, I've also got to be intentional about living like this. Because if I'm the kind of person that has one tool belt that I put on for going to work and another tool belt that I put on for my home based relationships, there are days I'm going to forget which tool belt I've got on. So um, I've got one tool belt. And in that tool belt is honesty and optimism and respect and authenticity. And hopefully I'll be able to build trust with people. And then I take those characteristics, those building blocks, and I infuse them into the people, the places, the processes, the policies, and the programs of the organization. People is just what it says. It's us. It's who we are. And then the places is the physical environment in which we happen to be. Process refers to how I measure success. And there's lots of different ways to do that. And if I choose a way that measures success that isn't honest and optimistic and respectful and authentic, it's not going to reflect the true character of what I want to accomplish. Policies are just what they say. These are policies that are designed to be honest and optimistic and respectful and authentic. I do a lot of policy writing. I also teach about policy, and po- writing policy is hard work, and it takes a lot of effort to make these policies reflect the values that we want to incorporate into our work. Programs refers to the what we do, and those programs likewise have to be infused with honesty and optimism and respect and authenticity. And if I do that, then I've got a good chance of building an environment, building a culture, an organizational culture where I'm choosing to always use these building blocks, and I will be intentionally safe. If I don't do that, if I come to work and I say, I've been at this for 40 some years, I don't need to do this anymore, then I'm going to rely on my natural skill sets and I'm going to be unintentionally harmful with people. I will say things and do things that I don't mean to be harmful, but that are because I'm not intentional about what I do. Uh, I have found that being an administrator is a whole lot harder than I thought it was, because I have to be on all the time. I cannot choose those times that I'm going to interact with people and that person's going to walk away and say to themselves, "Oh yeah, that was good." Uh, there's no such thing as the teaching moment because every moment is a teaching moment. Every moment, I either build someone up or I tear them down. And there's no middle ground in these workplace relationships. You either build folks up or you tear them down. And that's all there is to it. So I need to be intentional about how I do my work. And those core values of honesty and optimism and respect and authenticity, if they're not part of who I am, then it's not going to come out of my work. Uh, and I want to make sure I do a good job of building people up all the time. When we are honest and optimistic and respectful and authentic, we will be trustworthy. And then as we engage with other people, we'll create psychosocial safety together. Um, it's not something one person does by themselves. We create this sense of safety, all of us, when we work together in ways that are honest and optimistic and respectful and authentic. It's especially true that we do this, or maybe it's especially important that we do this for people affected by disability, because these are people whose histories of woundedness run far deeper than most people. The research data tells us that people with disability are 2 to 4 times more likely to be bullied in their work experience and their school experience than people who don't experience disability. And so we want to make sure we create an environment that doesn't reject people, that doesn't disappoint them, and doesn't have that sense of trauma that is present in environments unintentionally. I'm doing a lot of research now on autism because I'm writing an article on autism, and it turns out that people who are autistic are naturally bent neurologically to experience their interactions in ways that create PTSD like memories. Um, People who are autistic are much more at risk for trauma than people who are not autistic. Uh, I think that is true for everyone that we're going to put in that category of a person with a disability. It requires that we create settings that are intentionally safe, where we come to work every single day and we every single hour we say to ourselves, today, right now, I'll be respectful. Today, right now, I'll be optimistic. You probably have some coworkers who may have been at work as long as I have. I've been doing this for a good long time, and I've still got my optimism. Uh, I still I still believe that good things are possible. Um, I'm not giving up. Uh, you probably know people that have lost some of that, and we want to help them regain it and then maintain it for all of us. Bill Shorten was the minister for the NDIS for a number of years, and in 2009, uh, he talked about an ordinary life at a speech to the National Press Club in Canberra. And what he said is that people with disability want nothing more than to be just one of the gang. A girl in the office, a bloke at the pub, not invisible, but unremarkable. Just one of the guys, you know, just one of the people. And that is such a true statement among all the folks I've known over the years who have been affected by disability. Um, they want to be just part of the crew, part of the group. Um, Shorten went on to say they want to be part of the normal order of things, a friend like any other, a neighbor, an average Australian, a citizen, another human being. Uh, wow. Uh, that's a beautiful statement. And I use this a lot in the work that I do. And I ask the people that I support whether or not this is true for them. And I have yet to find someone who says, no, that's not true. Uh, this is a very true statement. So taking a look at how we apply this to our settings. Uh, I work at home now, and when I do consulting, when I do my work as a behavior support practitioner, I don't have an office. But when I did, I made sure that my office was open and inviting. I put my desk in the back of the office against the wall and on the side so that I could see with my left eye who was coming in. So I didn't want my back to them, but I also wanted to have an open space. And then I had a couple of chairs and a table that were down from my desk, so I had an open space, and I could take my chair from where my desk was, slide it over, and now I've got an open and inviting area where I can interview, where I can talk, where I can do my work. I really pay attention to barriers, and not just physical barriers, but relational barriers as well. So one of those barriers is administrators. That can be a barrier because when I was an administrator, people would say, "Oh, there's Mr. Bowen." Uh, they stopped calling me Mr. Bowen a few months into my position because the employee of the month, I worked their shift for them. And that was eye-opening for me and eye-opening for them um, because um, yeah, I can do the work. The only time I couldn't do that is if a nurse was the employee of the month, or sometimes a psychologist. Um, but other than that, the employee of the month got a day off, and I worked their shift. It did a couple of things. First, it made me accessible. It gave people a face to a name to a position. Um, it also gave accessibility uh, because after a few months, people realized this is an act. I'm not going to quit doing this after the first year. Uh, I really like doing direct support work. Yeah, I started in this field as direct support, and I like it. It's good stuff. So I think it's really important that administrators and supervisors be fully accessible, and you find your own way to do this. This is the way I did it, but you've got to find your way to be fully accessible to the people that you supervise. There are no titles in the organization. When I first started, I had a supervising psychiatrist named Coleman Burns, and I would say, "Hi, Dr. Burns," and he would say, "Hi, Bob. Call me Coleman." And I just couldn't do that because he's a psychiatrist, and I hadn't even finished college yet. I mean, I was just direct support. And after a few months, he came early and he sat down and he said, "Bob, when I come to these meetings, I've only got 20 minutes per person to review things and make decisions about medication, programmatic direction we're going to go. So I need your input because I'm a psychiatrist and you're not. You're you're a direct support practitioner and I'm not. You know more about these people than I do. Call me Coleman because in this organization, it's just first names, it's just people. We have different roles, but at the end of the day, we're just people, we're just folks. Uh, that was really important to me. And I have made it my life's goal to just be Bob and nothing else. So that's my title, uh, and that's the title that I like. One of the best resources that I know of is an article from Harvard Business Review, published May 20th last year, called "How to Build Psychosocial Safety in the Workplace." It's a great article and lots of good resources. The National Psychosocial Safety Network, we've got a website, and there are a ton of resources here as well. So we can help you with just about anything in terms of asking, if you ask the question, how do I do this? How do I, and give a specific, there'll be someone on our expert advisory group that will be able to answer that question. If our staff can't answer it, we can get that done. Uh, so, building psychosocial safety, uh, it's what we do. Um, we build psychosocial safety or we build psychosocial harm. Um, what you build is up to you. Um, for me, I'm committed to building safety every single day, every single interaction, one at a time. And with that, I'll say thank you. And hopefully, I've hit my time allotments and I can answer questions.
Very, very timely, Bob. Great time management there. Um, so I do have a couple of questions that I am happy to put to you, while everyone else kind of put some questions in the chat. So when interviewing someone who has a stated disability, how do I know how much time to give people to process my question? And should I say it again or rephrase the question?
Okay. So my general rule is to take 4 or 5 seconds after I ask a question and give people time to process. Processing delay happens in many different types of disability. And so you want to give people time to process that. And then if they're still struggling, then I rephrase the question. And I do my very best to use concrete language instead of abstract language. And what I mean by that is I use words that depict things that you can see or touch. And if I say, so tell me how you felt about your last job, that's an abstract question. And some of the folks I'm interviewing might not be able to process abstractly, they process concretely. And so then I might say, tell me about something you did that was successful. And that they can process. I also try to minimize the number of words that I use. And there's a PowerPoint rule that says you should have no more than 8 words in a PowerPoint line. I'm terrible at that. Uh, I usually have more than 8, uh, but I try to keep it simple so that it's easier for people to process what I'm asking.
Thank you for that. Next question, Bob. So, how can you support a team with many who have a disability or are neurodiverse when you yourself are neurodiverse?
Okay, so um, that's a great question because I'm neurodiverse, and so what that means for me is that I have feelings, um, but I don't process that way. I'm a cognitive person. And when people ask me questions, I just go right to town, and I start dealing with facts. And what I've learned is that every single person has facts and feelings about everything that's going on within the environment. And I need to take a minute and stop and ask myself, how do we feel? How do I feel? And pay attention to the feelings that I have inside of me. I'm not naturally connected to my feelings, and so I have to work at them. My friends and colleagues who are neurodivergent say very similar things. That when we're working with neurotypical folks, um, uh, it it, it's hard to remember uh, that they swim in feelings, and I don't. So I have to get used to that. So taking that time out, asking how I feel, paying attention to body language, tone of voice, keeping all of my feelers out, so to speak, is really, really important.
Thanks, Bob. Next question comes from Jane. So I love not using titles. While the December 2025 legislation asked us to integrate the term psychosocial throughout our risk management systems, do you tend not to use the term when you are communicating directly with employees?
I have to use the phrase psychosocial safety once. Uh, and after I use it once, then I tend to go to the building blocks. And I tend to talk about respect and optimism. I tend to talk about the things that create safety rather than the overarching term psychosocial safety. Because lots of folks, whether or not they're affected by disability, struggle with that word. What does psychosocial safety mean? Yeah, so I'll use it once, maybe twice, and then I'll go to the building blocks, the things that create safety, the things that get in the way of safety, so that we can address those risk factors as well.
Thank you. Next question. So, from an employer's perspective, what's your views on the needs to adapt onboarding processes for people with a stated disability?
With a stated disability,
Yeah.
okay, um, uh, I think you have to. Uh, Onboarding means welcoming people onto the train, and say, "Hey, come on in. I want to show you your seat. I want to show you the car in this train that you'll be riding, and here's what you're doing." And I'm going to have to adapt my process of doing onboarding to the way this person learns. Uh, there's a system I use called VARK. It stands for Visual, Auditory, Reading, Writing, and Kinesthetic. And I spend a few minutes asking myself, how does this person learn? And I can do that by listening to the words they use. So if they say, "So I see you do this," then that person might be someone who's visual. If they say, "Oh, you know what? I think," then that person might be cognitive. And I pay attention to the ways people interact with me and the words that they use, and then I pre-plan. So I've got a set of onboarding materials that are primarily visual, primarily auditory, primarily reading, writing, and then there are going to be some people who are kinesthetic. They have to do things with their hands in order to learn. Yeah. And so I will have lots of fidget toys available, and I'll use one myself as I'm interacting with people. So the onboarding process is, I heavily adapt that. And onboarding may take me more time. And that's been something said to me in my evaluations over the years, is that I take more time in doing onboarding. But what I found is that if I do a really good job of onboarding, um, you're going to do a really good job of performing. Yeah, and so I spend a lot of time in that onboarding process.
Thank you. Next question. Can you comment on how role ambiguity can represent a risk to psychosocial safety? In other words, not having clarity about your priorities, expectations from leadership, etc. And can you suggest any solutions?
Okay. Oh, I sense a minefield out there. So, uh,
I'm just reading them as they come
I
in.
know, I hear you. So, um, so role ambiguity is there, and it's not just administrators that can fall into that. It's in any position. If you don't know what you're supposed to do, um, you won't know how to do it. You won't know what to do, and you'll come to work, and you'll and you'll go through the motions, but you don't know what you're doing. So having a really clear vision of, of what it is we're supposed to do at an overarching level, at an administrative level.
Oh no, we've frozen.
Might be your Wi-Fi cut out. I'll just see if there's anything I can do in the background, Simon.
Thanks, Liv. Please bear with us while
Well,
we
I hear
try
you,
and get.
but you're not moving. So,
Oh, it's the same with us, Bob. We can hear you, but
okay.
you're not moving. So if you keep talking,
All right. All right. I can hear you. That's good.
so you were
Is there a
partway through.
question?
Yeah, so you were partway through
Oh,
answering that
I
second.
froze during all of that, huh?
Yeah, so you're gonna have to go back to the start, Bob.
Okay, so I'll start at the end. Every single person in an organization needs to have their own mission, vision, and value statement. We need to be clear about what it is that we're doing, whatever our role in the organization, so that we don't have role ambiguity. Uh, and if we're not clear on that, then we're not going to fulfill our role in a way that other people in the organization can use our work. Uh, Got to have clear mission, vision, and values that are integrated and synchronized with everyone else in the organization. That's the short answer.
Excellent, thank you. Next question, Bob, is if someone reacts strongly to something that you've said or done, how should you respond?
Okay, that's a really good question. So when someone reacts strongly, the first thing I do is I sit back. Yeah, and I sit back because I want my body language to demonstrate that I'm not aggressive, that I'm not defensive, and so I sit back just a little bit, and then I put my hands in front of me. You can't see my hands, but my hands are open and relaxed. Yeah, so there's light or air between my fingers. Can you turn me back on? Let's see if that works. Because when someone is upset, uh, and I've done something to harm them potentially at an emotional level, I want to make sure they understand I am not a threat in any way. So when I sit back, I'll have my hands up and I'll say, "Oh man, I'm really sorry that that happened." Um, and I'll just wait for a second, and then I'll ask a question, and I will own my end of whatever that miscommunication was. So I have to have my body language match that sense of openness that I want. I want people to trust me. And so my body needs to say that. If I lean in a little bit, I might look aggressive. I don't want that. So I'll sit back. I have my hands open, and I usually do something like this and say, "Oh man, I'm sorry that that happened. What did I say that?" And I'll explore what the person just said to me, and move on from there.
Okay, thanks, Bob. I don't have any more questions, so I might start to wrap up if that's okay. So, from my
Sure.
perspective, there's a couple of really key things that I took away from this. So, that whole concept of psychosocial safety doesn't just happen; that it must be built. I think that's a fantastic takeaway, and also that. When we're honest, optimistic, respectful, authentic, and trustworthy, we build psychosocial safety together. That whole concept of moving through this process together was fantastic. So thank you for that. On behalf of the Centre for Inclusive Employment, DEA, and the other consortium members, I'd like to thank you, Bob, for your presentation. Yes, Jane, the slides will be available on a little bit later. For those of you who joined us today, don't forget to claim your CPD points. Today's session is worth 2. And also coming up in a fortnight's time on the 15th of April, our next session is about sensory workplace design with Nicole Doan from the Exceptional Academy. And that session will be held on Wednesday, the 15th of April. So please join me once again in thanking Bob, and I wish you all well in the rest of your day. Thank you.